On September 7th, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released the unemployment numbers for the month of August. According to the report, employment rose by 96,000 in August, and the unemployment rate edged down to 8.1%. Digging deeper into the report, however, 368,000 workers left the labor force, mostly because they were unable to find jobs. How is it possible that the unemployment rate went down when for every job created, 4 workers just quit looking for work because they were so discouraged? When the unemployment rate goes down, shouldn't that mean that workers are finally able to find work again? In other words, if 4 times as many workers are not able to find work as workers who do, wouldn't you expect the unemployment rate to go up, not down? You might think that the unemployment rate measures the number of workers who are out of work and desperately need to find a job. If that's what you expect, you're wrong. As Mark Twain famously quoted, there are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. The unemployment rate reported by the BLS is a statistic bordering on a damn lie. And this is how it works. The government only counts you as unemployed if you looked for work in the past 4 weeks. It doesn't matter how desperately you need a job, the government only counts you if you looked for a job and were reported in some way they could measure, such as collecting unemployment benefits. If you are so discouraged that you haven't looked for a job in the past 4 weeks, the government simply will not count you as unemployed. This is the equation used by the government to calculate the unemployment rate. It only considers the number of jobless workers looking for a job, and the government defines looking to mean within the last 4 weeks. But isn't 4 weeks completely arbitrary? Why not 3 weeks or 5 weeks? There are millions of discouraged workers who have not been able to find work and have simply given up, and the government won't count them as unemployed. President Obama often speaks of fairness. Is it fair to stop counting someone as unemployed simply because they don't meet the government's narrow definition of looking for work? Think about this. If every jobless worker got so discouraged that they quit looking for work for a month, the government would report that the unemployment rate is 0. They would actually report that everybody who wants a job has a job. The government needs to quit lying to us. To fix the unemployment problem, shouldn't the government be honest with us and give an accurate picture of how bad unemployment really is? If we don't fully understand the problem, how can we expect to fix it? During hard times, when the economy is not producing jobs, the unemployment rate should really be the number of people needing work instead of the number of people looking for work, because this will factor in the millions of discouraged workers who can't find work. Remember that even though the government no longer counts these people as unemployed, they are still part of the economy. They still have families and need food, clothing, and housing. In other words, they need to continue living. So even though the government no longer counts them as unemployed, the government will count them with increases in the welfare rolls, food stamps, heating assistance, and rent assistance, to name just a few. This graph charts how the labor force and the number of employed have changed since President Obama was inaugurated in January 2009. It shows that nearly 4.5 million jobs were lost during 2009, and most but not all of those jobs have slowly recovered. At the same time, the labor force has fluctuated some, but has remained fairly steady. President Obama claims that he has created 4.5 million jobs. The president is giving you another statistic bordering on a damn lie. While it's true that nearly 4.5 million jobs have been created, the president is not telling you that 4.5 million jobs were lost first. There are still fewer people working today than the day Obama took office. This accounts for the rise in the unemployment rate reported by the BLS since Obama became president. The unemployment rate was 7.7% in January 2009, and it is 8.1% today. However, as we learned earlier, this is not the real unemployment picture. The BLS is not factoring in 2 key elements: the growth in population and the millions of discouraged workers who have given up. Let's add the change in civilian population to the graph. The civilian population is constantly growing, and much faster than either the labor force or the employed. This means that the population is rising but not finding jobs. There simply are not enough jobs being created to keep up with the rise in population. And because of how the BLS defines unemployment, they are not being counted as unemployed. To see the effects of civilian population growth on unemployment, we need to track yet another statistic reported by the BLS, the labor participation rate. This measures how the size of the civilian population relates to the size of the labor force. Normally, the labor participation rate remains fairly constant, which means that job creation is keeping pace with population growth. This graph shows the month-by-month declines in the labor participation rate during Obama's term. Since Obama became president in January 2009, the labor participation rate has dropped more than 2%. This equates to approximately 5.3 million jobless workers who are not counted as unemployed by the government. If the government still counted these discouraged workers, the labor participation rate would have remained fairly constant. So, we can use the labor participation rate on the day President Obama became president to calculate the true unemployment rate. This graph shows the unemployment rate reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Once again, this is the unemployment rate calculated by not counting the millions of workers who have given up looking for work. Now, let's add those millions of jobless workers back in and see what the real unemployment picture looks like. As you can see, the difference between the two is quite stark. Instead of the unemployment rate of 8.1% reported by the government, the real unemployment rate is closer to 11.2%. Hopefully, this helps you understand why workers can't find a job even though the government claims that the unemployment rate is falling. The unemployment rate reported by the government is a statistic that's a damn lie. The government is lying to you because they're not counting millions of discouraged workers who can't find jobs. They arbitrarily measure the labor force by methods that don't reflect reality in a bad economy. The real unemployment rate is still increasing because the economy isn't even creating enough jobs to keep up with the growth in population. Remember that President Obama promised that the unemployment rate would not go above 8% if he got $837 billion in stimulus money. Note that except for Obama's first month in office, the unemployment rate reported by the government has not been below 8%. Notice, too, that according to the government, the unemployment rate has been falling since 2010. However, the real unemployment rate has stayed above 10.5% for most of Obama's presidency and is rising, not falling. We hired President Obama because he promised he would fix our economy, including our unemployment problems. He's tried and failed miserably by any measure. If we hire Obama for another 4 years, can we expect anything except more of the same? Isn't it time we hire someone with a track record of success in creating jobs, who understands business and the economy, someone that will reduce regulation and taxes and allow businesses to be competitive again? Isn't it time to get America growing again? Mitt Romney has succeeded at almost every venture he's undertaken. America's survival depends on your support for Mitt Romney. Thank you for listening, and please pass this information on.